Carlton got so much right. Did you hear the caller before in our snap judgments who goes, Wiedering knocked rotten in the last quarter, to Hollands, who they choose as the sub, to Doherty, who's playing with an arm hanging out, to Akers with a broken collar. Like, the unlikelihood of all of it, that passage of play to win the game, what they got right, Carlton, so much of it.
That's a great call. And this is what we're talking about. So these finals get separated by moments, by individuals doing something a bit different, something a little bit special. So looking back over the weekend, so the scoring profiles are what I'm trying to look at. So 87 points is the average winning score. If you get to 80, you're winning. 3 teams got to 80, they've won, obviously. It's a big number in a final. 69 is the average losing score. So there's been 7 scores between 68 and 77.
Yep.
Only 2 of them have won. So it's fine line stuff. So you need to... So are you trying to stop the opposition to get to sort of 65? Are you trying to keep them below that? Or are you trying to get to 80, 90 yourself? So who are you and where do you sit? So Melbourne are clearly at one end of the spectrum, but they only scored 53 and 71. But you look at Carlton. Carlton have won with 74 and 73. So they're in that their 2 scores are in that 7 range, and they've been victors. So I have a worry with that they're neither defensively brilliant nor offensively brilliant. I understand you've just got to win. But they're right on the edge. They're right on the edge. So that worries me. And if you're looking for how they score, it's always interesting. So they scored 3 goals from centre bounce clearances. It's not a bankable commodity. It's not something you can walk in the next week saying, we'll get 2 from there, or we'll get 3, or we'll get whatever. Some weeks you get them, some weeks you don't. So I worry that may not be available on the weekend against a really good centre bounce team in Brisbane. So how are you going to find those other goals? So you're only getting to 73 with 3 goals coming from centre bounces. Like that is a small concern. Not doom and gloom. You might get 5 goals from them.
Yep.
But it's a bit of a risk. The biggest talking point we'll have after the news is Charlie Curnow. Is Charlie actually channeling them to this flag?
All right. Monday morning at Ikon Park with the Carlton fans with a wonderful sense of expectation. Tickets have just gone on sale. What number are you in the queue, David King?
I'm deep, Jared. 18,000 in front of me.
All right. Well, we'll follow that in real time with you. Do the Blues have PFI? Do they have preliminary final integrity? And you're going to measure this through Charlie Curnow.
Yeah, well, we're looking for reasons why you would win, or what are your concerns, and how do you navigate your way through that and try and address those in the run. So Charlie's hardly been targeted inside the forward 50 over the last 2 weeks, which is strange, isn't it? Which goes against what we've seen throughout the course of the season. So he's only had a handful of forward 50 targets in both weeks. There's been 0 return from the targets they've gone to him, whether it be for the player or for the team. Now that is a concern. And if you look at the targets, the top 30 targets in the AFL through the finals, and there's only really probably a dozen bona fide forwards that are those targets. He's the worst target of the final series so far. 0 return. So he'll need to improve from his 1 goal and 1 goal output in the first 2 weeks. Now, we know he's a star, and we appreciate that he can do that this week. But only 1 mark inside 50 each week. So he desperately needs Martin to come back. He desperately needs Harry to come back. And then you hear Vossi talk a lot about what Harry does for them, and I think that has a massive impact on Charlie, obviously. So I'm just looking at his one-on-ones. He's been involved in 7 of them. 5 of them have been diffused, and then he's lost the other 2. So he's yet to win a one-on-one genuine stand with a man. And May was all over him on the weekend, and it stood out for everyone watching the game. So how do you get Charlie back to that brilliant best form of the home and away season? Not many key position forwards just destroy games in finals, but Joe Danaher has. He certainly did in the first week, and he will be at the other end of the ground, obviously, this week. So I'm watching Charlie. I think they've played some moments really well, Carlton. When you win a game like they have on the weekend, it's clearly about moments, but they just need one of their forwards to dictate terms. It has to be Charlie. He has to do more than 1 mark inside 50.
Yep.
if you look at who has done really well, so their number one score involvement player is Sam Doherty, who's equal with Cottrell over the final series, which is obviously had the big first week. So I think the injury scare for Sam is real now, isn't it? If you're having that sort of an impact on the group, then he's not just the fact that he's out there, but he's out there and influencing becomes a real must watch for them. How they've scored their goals is the concern for me, as I said to you before, just the 73 and 74 points. So I'm probably looking at this game thinking, how would they get Brisbane? What would be the area they could get Brisbane now? I look at Paddy Cripps and he is sore. There's no doubt, and I'm not sure whether we get to see him in a moment when they come out in the field, but he's got the old Paul Roos thigh guard strapped around his ribs, and it's clearly playing with discomfort and playing pretty well, getting his hands on the ball, 27 touches on the weekend, 9 clearances. I don't know how he's getting the 9 clearances banged up the way that he is, but when you look at their scoring profile, the 5 goals, as I said, from clearances on the weekend, 3 of those from centre bounce. On turnover, that they only scored the 40 odd points. So I'm just wondering whether they can get their game back and going on the road. It's going to be critical that they just stifle the Brisbane Lions' ability to win clear and pure clearance exits, because they can do that to you. And McCluggage is probably the watch.
PFI for Carlton. Let's debate the Melbourne scenario, shall we? Straight sets, 2 years running, haven't reached a prelim since winning their premiership. Here was Simon Goodwin post-match.
I'm feeling like probably every other Melbourne supporter, and all the players that are sitting next door, they're pretty shattered. There's certainly an emptiness about, the group and this adversity that we'll have to work through. I thought we got enough shots to win the game. We just didn't kick our goals. So in the end, it was an efficiency with the ball that cost us. We think we're in a good shape to be able to continue to build, but we've got to sometimes go through these little challenges, this adversity, to really build the resilience and greatness that's required to win big games. And this is just for us, another step in our little workway that we want to go back to where we want to be.
The Melbourne debate is for Gumbaya World. Visit gumbaya.com.au. These school holidays get a wild life. It's sort of where do they find themselves now, and what do they do next?
Yeah, so we had a good chat about this on Saturday, and we're in opposing camps, you and I. So let's use information rather than emotion, okay? So everyone's comparing this year's straight sets to last year's straight sets. So last year, they couldn't move the ball out of their back 50 against Sydney, and they just kept turning the ball over, and they paid a price. That can happen in any given game. They couldn't stop Brisbane moving the footy, so it was a different way to lose that second final last year, and it was mainly in the second half. And they scored 91 and 92 points, those two teams. So that is defeating Melbourne at their absolute strength, which is defensively. So Melbourne pride themselves on their D50 being able to stand up and making it very hard to move the ball against. They got beaten in both those facets last year. So I understand the criticism last season. But when you look at this year's losses to Carlton and Collingwood, they only coughed up 60 and 73 points. They won both clearance battles, +3, +4. They won both contested possession battles, +14, +16. They won the inside 50 count, +1, +32. If you can guarantee me those numbers again in next year's final series, I'm signing that deal. Because you can get beaten by Health, which I think they were, with their absolute full forward stock, whether it be Melksham, whether it be Petty, whether it be Brown. There were options there they just didn't have the ability to have a look at for the critical part of the season, and they got beaten by skill execution in front of goal. Now, that happens in every final series to one team. And it could even happen this weekend. It could happen in a grand final.
So contest and defence, which they preach like a religion, is 2 of the 3 phases of the game.
Yep.
And they've seen the third phase bring them undone, but you'd be comfortable with contest and defence again.
Well, it's a great starting point. I mean, in my opinion, if you can be top 2 in the comp in those 2 areas, you are finishing top 4. Now, I understand there are other things that can win you a game or lose you a game, but if you're going to guarantee me those 2, I'm taking that.
Yeah, but you are in that. you're almost viewing these two finals. You can get beaten like that. That can happen to anyone, act of God. Except this is their pattern of behaviour.
Oh, not act of God.
Oh, no. Their pattern of behaviour through the season is they couldn't get it onto the scoreboard in the manner that they might have.
Yeah.
So I look at their 2-year block
but
and
they
go,
stacked a lot of wins.
They did. But they had this fault line in their makeup which reared its head.
Yeah.
And couldn't be resolved. Now, they were unlucky.
Petty was a big
they were
loss.
unlucky with Petty and Melksham. But equally, if you're saying to me, no, it'll be all right, but Petty and Melksham is that's how we're going to solve it. I mean, I'm not signing up for that.
No, not it'll be all right. I'm not saying it'll be all right. I'm saying that I think if they're top two in those two areas again next year, they're top four. Now, to me, that's a long way down the path to winning the flag.
Yep. Do you think, if I look at their 2-year block, they had outstanding start to last season, where they played really damaging footy, and then they just mixed and matched for the rest, and they were over the top by the way they got to the finals.
Yeah.
So this year they tried to time their run better, but I have this nagging feeling with Melbourne that they never quite had their mode absolutely locked in this year, which was identified by Goodwin with about 8 weeks to go when he changed. He saw what wasn't quite going to work in September, so he made his alterations. And then he got injury, which undermined the alterations. Just don't feel like they ever... So they win the Brisbane game, which is an act of God, I reckon, that night. They were going to get beaten by 40 points. Brisbane went into this really conservative, and Melbourne took their chance. They went straight at them, and it ends up being Melksham who wins it. And it sort of salvages a whole lot and gives them a fresh look that I wasn't sure they were going to get. But then by the time they get to the finals, there's these problems in their game which couldn't be resolved.
But they're scoring shots, aren't they?
But
is the coach's job? The coach's job is to create a method that'll win you games of football and allow you the opportunity to forward of the ball to win it. They had more scoring shots than anyone.
Yeah. So, and I like the way Durham sort of mocked the expected scoring. We had good fun with that. So they're plus 22 and plus 21 in these two finals for what they should have got onto the scoreboard, except that they don't get it onto the scoreboard. It's not that they didn't on the night, it's that they don't get it onto the scoreboard.
Fritsch injured back half of the year, Petty injured, Melksham injured. I mean, you can only replace so many forward of the ball.
Yes.
It gets to a tipping point. So I understand the criticism, but you can't be... It's very rare that we see a team that is the best in the comp in all three phases. You have to invest your energy somewhere. So rather than run the risk of being ranked 8th in all three phases, trying to please all parts of the ground, they say, let's prioritise contest and defence at the expense a little bit of being able to score. But in the end, they've held their opposition to 2 scores that they should have been able to pass and that they should have been able to win. Yeah, those 2 games.
Yeah. Could they be better? Could they be different? Could they go the Collingwood Giants route with the weapons that they've got?
Well, they could be more aggressive with their ball movement and trust their back six. But you are what you are. And this is what we're arguing about.
I get that until you make a decision across an off-season to go, no, we are going to change.
Yeah, although I think they will make subtle changes. It'll be a tweak, not an overhaul. It may involve a little bit more corridor. I still think their biggest error was not allowing Petrarca more time forward of the ball, because he is a score creator. He is a goal kicker. And I still think at the last 5 minutes of that game on the weekend, Max Gawn couldn't move. Now, I think he played too many minutes in the ruck without a lot of assistance. And when you need him to be the man, he couldn't function. He couldn't get off that wing for the last 2 minutes. Now, if he was able to get back or to contested mark once, maybe twice more in that last quarter, you win the game. But in the end, he misses his set shot at goal. Fritsch, who's been pretty much bulletproof with his set shot, he misses that. Max inexplicably taps that one through for a point, which is was Oliver's goal, really. It's a lot of silly things. You talk about act of God. I mean, that is an act of God.
There's 6 things when you watch it back and go, any one of those Melbourne does better at and they win the game. They don't need all 6. They just need 1.
And we're not talking like this. This is why I keep saying. So we're saying, oh, wow, they've found a way to stay in games. Yes, they're not blowing teams away. But just because they won the flag in 2021 didn't mean that everything was perfect. They went crazy at centre bounce for 10 minutes in a grand final and blew it open. And then all the energy just dissipated for the Dogs, and they went on and kicked 13 goals or whatever in a row. And everyone says they're the pure model. They were the pure model of contest and defence. Everyone forgets that. But because in that final series or leading into that final series, they used Ben Brown in a different way. They had that target. They had Fritsch at full forward. So yeah, I can understand the outside and external. I don't think they'll change too much. I really don't. So if you're expecting massive change, you're not going to get it. But you're going to get a lot of home and away wins, and you're going to get another opportunity to win the flat, which are hard. They're bloody hard to win, Jared.
Yes, but not having won a final in either of these 2 years. So that's not about winning the flag. That's...
Well, if they did...
At one stage you had home and away Chris. Well, home and away Simon hasn't been able to win a final in the last 2 years.
You don't use this rationale with Ken Hinkley. Not once have you used that rationale with Ken Hinkley. You'll use the 13 home and away games on me in a minute.
Yeah, well, they've got...
So you can't have it for one, not the other.
They've got totally different issues, though. They're not set in the way that Melbourne is set.
But you were saying we have to sign Ken on 13 wins in a home and away. So that's the same rationale.
Yes, well, I felt like they'd set him the task and he passed the task, and then they bow out in straight sets, and they have more personnel issues, I think.
In the end, that's
Melbourne
home and away. In the end, that's the same argument. It's home and away.
Yes, but I don't think Port are going to go into the season
series
in the same way, are they?
But what's he done in a final series that gives you so much positivity and joy?
We probably should run a double version of PFI, preliminary final integrity for the Giants.
We're going again, are we?
I think so.
Well, have you ever seen a team in more form than the Giants? I mean, on the road doesn't faze them. Nothing worries them, whether they need to win with ball movement, they need to win with brutality and clearance. They can do all of that. They can stand up behind the footy. They've got Buckley and Iden and Taylor, who are just bulletproof at the moment. Having a look at that back trio, if you add Himmelberg to it, so add the four of them, okay? So the four of them have been involved in 27 one-on-ones defensively through this final series, and they're yet to be outmarked. Buckley, Himmelberg, Iden and Taylor. 27 one-on-ones, yet to be beaten. That's an amazing number. So their whole team, their whole club, so if you add the extras around the edges, they've been involved in 34 defensive one-on-ones, and they've only lost one. Collingwood have lost 4 of 14. So that just puts it in perspective. 1 of 34, Pies 4 of 14. So where you expect them to be vulnerable, because they play this free-flowing, it's not as risky as you think. It's not as calculated sort of ball movement. It's not as risky. It's not just throw it in the corridor. You'd think on turnover that they would bleed a bit more out the back, but they don't. So I don't know how he's done it. I really don't. You know, you see a team at 3 and 7, or 4 and 8, or 8 and 12, whatever they were. They're always chasing their tail through the course of the year. And not only have they been able to correct the win-loss, they've been able to build this plan and find pure health into a preliminary final off the back of. Well, there's a young guy in the middle there, Tommy Green, who's just been ridiculous. They're the only team left of the top of the last 4 standing that have a positive clearance differential. They're plus 17 for the finals. The rest have all struggled to stamp a clearance game. So Tom Green's had 13 clearances, and 4 of those have become scores. Kieran Briggs has had the most. He's had 17. 4 of those have become scores, and he's grabbed it out of the ruck 7 times. They've become, those two, so strong in there that it's allowed the others to mix and match what they do. So Cornelio comes back in on the weekend, and he's run post first receive, or just that first possession just on the edge of traffic has been unreal. Callum Ward just played with an arrogance on the weekend that you had to see. He was happy to engage in someone trying to tackle him. He was stepping back into traffic to say, righto, let's make this personal. And then he was just breaking that tackle, and they're out and gone. So their clearance stuff at the moment is crazy. And then they've got the weapons on the outside. Who do you go after? Do you go after Kelly? Do you go after Whitfield? What do you do with Ash? Are you just prepared to let him run and gun? So I really think the only stone in the shoe for me about them is how many times can they keep doing this? 6-day break, travel. Does it just have an end point where you fall off the cliff? and Collingwood waiting there with a week off, ready to just land one between the eyes. Is that what we're going to see? Or are we going to see them just say, no, we're here again?
Yeah. So they have that air about them as we're here again. So you flagged them on the watch list heading into round 21 and declared that if there was a team in the bottom part of the draw that had their game coming together in the right way, it was the Giants. And then they lost 2 in a row. But this is exactly what they were building and what you foresaw. And it is that mix of Tom Green and Ward, who are so physically brutal, and then you've got the run. So in that second quarter burst, and they kicked 5 goals, 6. Like they should have been 60 points up before half-time. That we marvelled at the Lions' third quarter last week, and there was a quarter Collingwood played against Fremantle at the MCG in the middle of the year. That burst was as good as anything that you'd see for its lethal edge.
Yeah, spot on. Spot on. I mean, we're all in awe of what they're able to do. It's actually a great watch. It's a spectacle. My eyes can't leave Toby Green. And I keep saying it, and we've shown it, I reckon, 4 weeks in a row. If you get this matchup wrong, if you do not play Toby Green back shoulder and keep him in front of you, he will get the ball, or he will force you into a panic mode where you then go for the intercept or the crump. You try and outread him. And that's a bad space to live in, trying to outread Toby Green. So through this final series, he's had the most score involvements. He's had 14 of these 18 score involvements have been inside the forward 50. So he's involved in 1 every 3 Giants scores. So you've been watching the college football?
A little bit.
They've been talking about Deion Sanders, prime time.
Deion Sanders.
Prime time, right? I think this guy is prime time Toby Green. He's playing centre-half forward, Jared, and he just wants the footy. And they go through him as often as they can because they just know how clever he is and how smart he is in terms of ensuring that the team get the score. I don't know if he's got a 5-6 goal game in him, but what he's got the ability to create 5 or 6 goals for everyone. He's making Riccardi play some really good. Don't snooze on Riccardi. He's 12 goals, 5 the last 5 weeks, 7 marks inside 50 the last 2 weeks. I think he's the one. He's 14 times targeted through the finals. He's the one that's getting in behind Toby Green. Toby's drawing the heat as a 182 centimetre centre-half forward, and he's allowing Hogan and Riccardi to be dual full forwards. So it's different to what you see everywhere else. So it's the triangular formation of those 3 that's challenging other teams to come up with 3 really good defensive players. Now, Collingwood have got that. But don't get it wrong against Toby. Get it wrong against the others. Don't get it wrong against Toby.
All right, some PFI on the Giants who are heading to Friday night. Do you know where you've made your error? Was it refreshing?
No, it wasn't a refresh.
Posing their questions as to how
the
you got this wrong.
The AFL are very generous in the past players. They give us the opportunity to get a couple of tickets, and I think I was a bit late talking to you. Can I just, before we leave the Giants?
Yep.
So rounds 1 to 21, they averaged 83 points per game. Since that stage, so the last, 5 games, they're averaging 109. 109.
Good time to be doing that.
It's a great time to be doing that.
The last time we saw them was that round 19 game against Collingwood, which is in the best 3 games of the season. But that was about all she wrote for Port Adelaide.
So where do you sit? You start. I mean, we've had this debate all year.
So my view all year was that they were doing the most with the least of the good teams, and then they went off the cliff. They went into the wall with more than a month to go. So their captain and their stalwart defender couldn't be played anymore. Charlie Dixon couldn't get out on the field anymore. And they were short-suited everywhere you looked other than the midfield. And their only chance coming into the final series was they might have had a point of difference midfield. But they didn't play well enough. And then every time that an opposition went forward, Port got scored against. And they were flattered by Saturday night in the second quarter because it was 5 goals, 6 in that burst where they had not a single answer. And it took them, they were rocking in the corner with 8 minutes to go in that quarter. They show their character in the second half. I think they had a really good third quarter, and then I reckon the Giants played the clock in the last quarter. And they kick 1 goal 9, so they don't get the chance to see if they could do something heroic. But they have holes in their list. This is where I differ. I don't think Melbourne have holes in their list. I think Port have got holes in their lists in a lot of important places.
All right. So put it all on the table. I think Ken is a good average AFL coach. I think he's Kenny average. And that's fine. And the game plan that they play, for me, exposes their lack of talent in certain areas more than any other game plan. So if you want to win flags on talent, you're going to take a long time to get the list that's stacked everywhere. I think they made some errors late in the year. Put Ollie Wines, 1 minute on the wing for Ollie Wines is 1 minute too many. I don't understand what that achieved. He's a Brownlow medalist. He's a clearance player out of clearance form. The only way for him to get clearance form back is to play him at the clearance. So I never understood that move. You keep telling Travis Boak he's finished, he'll be finished. And yeah, that's what you get for the back half of the year. You drop Finlayson and it becomes a big story, and then everyone assesses his form and they say, you know what, you are horribly out of form. And then you play him as the sub. Hey, you're that far out of form, but you're still playing. There's so many things there that I go, what are you setting up? What are you doing? Now, they've been a known product down back all year. So if you've got a back line that's just going to bleed heavily like that, you have to ensure that it doesn't get down there. So you have to come up with a method of defence that's better than what they've had. That's on Ken. So we can dance around all these issues and say, oh, but they won a lot of home and away games. Even when they were winning those home and away games, I kept saying to you, the model is not right. It doesn't have preliminary final integrity. Now, they can argue all that. And I get it. I get the fact that it becomes a constant discussion about, is it the coach, is it the playing list? I think Damien Harbick showed you how to do it with role players. And I don't think they had a lot more than what Ken's had at his disposal. So the midfield are brilliant. They are. But if that's all you got, well, gee, you're going to run it. You're going to run the ground a fair bit. You've got to come up with a game plan that caters for lesser talent across the park. Rushing Dixon back reeked of desperation to me.
They were in a desperate phase at the end. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, but to drop Finlayson to bring in Dixon, I don't know about that, Jared. I don't know about that. So I just think you've got average. If you waited to the end of the year to re-sign Ken, would you make the same decision?
It's an interesting question.
Well, we went through change before. Collingwood, they make a change to the captain, they make a change to the coach last year. GWS have gone bang, bang. Change is okay. Change is good. Change regenerates the whole thing. Does it need that or does it need stability? They've been pretty stable for a decade. Well, I think change was at the right time now for Port, but they're not going to get it.
So my question around what they're recruiting, I enjoyed your conversation on Friday about it, is so are Alir and Radaglia the same player? That just sort of nags at me if they're going to be the two key posts. So which one's your lock away and which one's your intercept?
Yeah, they're saying that Zerk Thatcher will be the lock away, aren't they?
So I'm not having that. We've got enough evidence in front of us to say he's not the lock away, don't we?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're in for Zerk Thatcher, Radaglia and Jordan Sweet.
Yes, yeah.
They're all 25. The Ruckman's played 11 games. Asava's played a dozen games down back. And let's be absolutely critical. The poorest the Geelong back six have looked for a decade has been this year, where you're putting your eggs in the Asava Radaglia basket. So if that's they'll reap what they sow, Jared. If you bring B grade in, you'll be B grade. That's just my opinion. And people say you're hard on Ken. You've got a problem with. I haven't got a problem with Ken at all. We're just talking about the profile of this team. For me, was never going to bring success this year because of their defensive incapability across the field. They don't challenge their mids to do enough defensively because they're all the star factor players. They're all in there at the one time. There's no one really geared to support the defensive run. Trent Cotchin did it for the last 4 years of his footballing life. Who does it for Port? Willem Drew alone? Is that it?
Yep.
You know, I just think there's so many little holes that in the end, when you play good teams that are well functioning, you get exposed.
The end point was, would Ken win his contract or not? Not would we win the flag or not? And there's a difference in that. As Ken was coaching for his life from the start, and then particularly from round 4, there was no motivation to try different things in the middle of the year and lose games because his future had been hinged on the win-loss. I feel like they fell for the wrong premise. And I don't know how that's avoidable other than this is the risk of putting a coach on trial in the last year of his contract. So you either go early and re-sign
Pre-season?
or you sack and don't enter the last year. But it just feels like in the end, their case study was, their whole 2023 season was, could Ken win a new contract? And the answer was yes, but they got nothing to show for it at the end. They're out in straight sets. So if you're securing your job, you go, we're trying to plot this out to be in the best shape we can be by the final. But he didn't have that. There was no motivation for him to take that approach because if he experiments in the middle of the year and they lose 4 games, he's out.
Yeah, and I guess as soon as your energies and your aspirations are not to win the flag, there's something else, you're in trouble. So I've had this discussion in the past about different clubs and different coaches where I think you can come to an arrangement behind the scenes where you say, Ken, we're going to tell the world we've given you a 2-year extension, but if we change our mind in August or September, if things fall over, there's a termination payment there of $200,000. Do you want to sign that or not and live this? We want you to win the flag. If you win the flag, we're clearly going to roll on. If you get an offer from the Gold Coast that's 5 years and you want to come and shake our hand in August, well, give us the opportunity of 1, matching it, or 2, waiting to see if the season becomes a premiership season, and then we will obviously match that because all sins are forgiven if you win the flag. And I think rational people can do something like that, can come to an arrangement where you can take the pressure off Ken for the meaningless home and away games through the middle of the year, which we know right now are absolutely meaningless, and still give the club the best chance to win the flag.
Yeah. So that they said the exam results were in August.
Yeah.
There's never been a team that set we're making, our season will be determined by August. I feel like they got what they accidentally set up, which was the very best footy was played on its way to an August deadline instead of, hey, this is all about the end of September. And they were trying to navigate the pressure, and the pressure's undeniable. And I reckon they're a cautionary tale in a different way. That's all.
The whole August thing is crazy, Jared. I called it at the time. And I said to Goshi, mate, why are you doing August? Wait till the exams are done and then review it. Because at the start of the year, everyone said Ken had to make a prelim at minimum. He hasn't made a prelim. Yet he's got the 2-year extension.
Text through, if GWS aren't your top seed, you're kidding yourselves. I've got the Giants at 4, Louis. I'm kidding myself. Who have you got at 4?
No, I'm not giving up on Melbourne, Jared.
They're playing in the expected preliminary final.
I know it's going to be hard from here.
Where are we broadcasting that from?
I just would feel fake if I put Carlton in at 4.
3?
3 for me, GWS. I still am a big believer in the week off system, and the top 2 obviously have won that first week of finals and go through with a bit more health, and you would think the luxury of a bit of home ground advantage.
I've got the Brisbane Lions at 3.
3?
2?
At 3?
I don't know what I've done with my settings. 2?
Collingwood, that the Magpie Army, they're going to have a huge say. GWS coming off 2 6-day breaks, that worries me. I've
got Carlton at 2. I've been over-indexed on the Blues the whole way through. As we're here, how could I not have Carlton at 2? 1?
Surprised you never won, actually. No, Brisbane for me. I mean, their scoring power is the one thing that stands out like dog's knackers, Jared. 123 points in the first final. No one else is getting past 75 odd, and they put 123 up. So they're clearly number 1 for me, and just hope for Chris Fagan they can get it done.
I've got Collingwood as the 1 seed, best team of the season. Now it all goes on trial in preliminary finals. Terrific, Kingy.
Good on you, mate.
The seedings are for tyre power. We're here at Ikon Park with the Blues faithful as the team starts to train. Crash is next.